Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl News. My name is Brian, and Elon Musk doesn't steal the show, his child does in this adorable fashion when Elon Musk is giving a very important update about what Doge is doing to make our government solvent again. Let's dive in.
So the at a high level, if you say what is the goal of Doge, and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, FKX, we would have to, if you sorry. So, tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, or if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens, as opposed to a large unelected bureaucracy. This is not to say that there are good people who are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy. And if you looked at this, if you looked at the founders today and said, what do you think of the way things have turned out? Well, we have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want, and it does not match the will of the people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And then we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit. And if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking, because we spend a lot of money on defense. But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
Man, Elon Musk doesn't just hit this nail on the head, man. That's a huge problem, okay? Our interest payments on the debt is now the second largest federal government expenditure. The first largest is Social Security. The third largest is Medicare. This did not used to be the case, okay? Back in the 2000s, and I'm sort of a disciple of Glenn Beck here, but I remember reading that interest payments was about 6% of the federal expenditures. And I remember thinking, that's very weird. We're paying a whole lot of money on interest. So even as a kid, I understood this concept and understood it to be just absolutely asinine. And now it is ballooned into a massive problem, okay? Our debt is spiraling out of control. And that's why Donald Trump has brought Elon Musk on board. And to be honest here, I'm glad of the job he's doing. But he's getting pushback from the courts that are saying, no, you can't cut funding because it's been congressionally appropriated. Well, there's going to be some legal fights on that regard, because we are under a continuing resolution rather than an actual budget, because that continuing resolution is simply a blank check. And it tells the government, hey, we're going to continue funding you, but we're not going to tell you how we do it. And so ultimately, there's going to be a huge legal battle, and finally, it is being brought forward. And it's high time that we finally have this fight, because there is a constitutional crisis in this country, and it's been happening ever since FDR. And I highly doubt that there's anyone that's watching this channel that was alive during FDR. If you are, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Please give us your knowledge. But during the FDR administration, FDR tried to pack the courts. He was not happy that the Supreme Court kept on shutting him down because he was working outside of the boundaries of the Constitution. Then he tried to pass a whole bunch of legislation that Congress, even the Democrat Party, said, no, this is not how we're supposed to do things. We have just tried to relearn this lesson. Let's not bring this up again. However, FDR was good at getting us out of leading us through World War II and what happened immediately afterwards. So yes, he was in balance and actually decent president. He was right for World War II, but man, oh man, he created a constitutional crisis in his first 2 terms. How he handled the Great Depression made everything worse. But more importantly, something that we really need to touch on here, and if you want to dive deeper into this topic, I highly recommend doing the online courses that are completely free at Hillsdale College. Just go to their website, look up their online courses, and their whole premise, and it's the same one that I want to bring up here, is that the progressive ideology ultimately superseded the Constitution and has created a legal and bureaucratic nightmare for the American people. And they are 100% correct. See, the progressive ideology, there's 2 sides of this coin. One is, let's update the government, let's reform some things, let's give some extra rights here and there to make sure that Americans are getting a square deal. That was the Theodore Roosevelt progressivism. Then this devil by the name of Woodrow Wilson got into office, and he brought in the liberal form of progressivism. And that was the idea that an unelected bureaucracy was better than Congress. In other words, he didn't trust the American people to make their own decisions and to elect people, in a classic Republican style. And that's why Elon Musk in this clip is specifically bringing up the idea that we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. And it's high time that we start challenging that ideal. Because when you aren't governed by the Constitution, where exactly are we governed? Okay? If we are constantly working outside of these boundaries, then what are the boundaries? That is a terrifying question to ask. And so that's why there's so much pushback against the progressive ideology. And that's what Republicans have been working ever since FDR to undo the damage. And they've done a pretty darn good job. As much as I don't like Mitch McConnell, as much as he should retire, his legacy is going to be bringing up a Supreme Court that is 6 conservatives, and I put that in air quotes, and 3 liberals. And that would not have been the case if Donald Trump had not been president in 2016 and we had not gotten 3 justices during that time, all thanks to the hard work of Mitch McConnell. So ultimately what I'm getting at here is we are trying to restore balance to our federal government. We're trying to do this in the court system. That's why so many left-wing progressive policies that started happening after the 1940s, because the progressives ended up capturing the Supreme Court for about 60 years, and we're undoing the damage. Because there is legitimate damage that has been done to the Constitution, to our entire process. And we should not be governed by a bureaucracy. We should be governed by a Congress that actually writes laws for the first time in 40 years, and a president who actually abides by those laws, and a Supreme Court that makes sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's the whole beauty of our checks and balances, and Elon Musk, a man born in South Africa, understands this better than the entirety of the federal bureaucratic quagmire. And Donald Trump is now bringing a sledgehammer and a water pump, and we are quite literally starting to drain the swamp. But it's not going to be easy. But ultimately, I think the best takeaway is that Elon Musk is a doting father who loves his kids. And you can see that because, dude, that kid dresses better than I think I ever will, and pulls off a tan suit. Imagine a tan suit in the Oval Office, guys. Terrible. But ultimately, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing the will of the American people and are draining the swamp. And meanwhile, I gotta find this kid's tailor, because that is one snappy suit. And that's a moment that this kid will never, ever forget. The moment that not just his father, but a president and an idea ended up winning and resonating with the American people. And that is drain the swamp, restore balance to the Constitution, and start cutting the necessary fat from our federal expenditures. So go Musk. I hope he and Trump win in the courts because we deserve good government. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl News. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.